Hi, it's Hazel, and welcome to my channel, Hazel and Aka Design. If you watched a recent video, you know that I was talking about how we can use vintage and more modern magazines as a reference or as a resource for our journal making projects. So I showed a, I don't know, portfolio or something in which I had a number of vintage images fussy cut. So that kind of got me thinking, like, what am I waiting for? I can use these girls right now. So I selected 4 intact female images that I had fussy cut. 2 are in color like this, and 2 are black and white. And I thought, okay, these girls are, well, this one's slightly over 9¼ inches tall, but that doesn't mean that she can't be used in a tall, skinny journal. So this video sort of covers several categories that I'm interested in. Use it, don't store it. So in other words, got magazines, I've already put in the sweat equity of having fussy cut them. I've got thrifted fabric scraps, and I have thrifted or found paper, cardstock. So whether it's this, which was a calendar that had these, I think these are actually cells. I'm using this sort of stuff as my basis. I've also, I prepared to a certain degree 2 others, and I will do one with you. I mean, and of course, we're not talking decorating, we're talking just the initial steps. So let me peek under my cutting mat here and see what's what. Now, some of these girls, because of their poses in the 1980s, with those padded shoulders and poofy sleeves and, just big everything, have kind of a bigger wingspan. This girl had her right elbow cut off, so I knew she had to be butted up against the side. Now, I don't know whether you can tell or not, but this is a mini little houndstooth in navy and white, and she's kind of got a similar type outfit that she's wearing. So this was a packaging, and you can see that the circle for hanging it is still there. Whoops. I chose to, because this was a firm, fabric, I chose to put it over the printed side of the tag, thinking I don't need to do anything in the back other than maybe add something to cover that little hole. This was kind of a little fringy edge, so I just left that in place. Now, for this one and the next one I'm about to show you, I just used my Yoo-Hoo glue stick. So I really slathered it on, and it was only on the second one that I thought, you know what, it might be a good idea to also run a thin bead of art glitter glue around the edges. Now, I will be sewing around these cards once the glue has thoroughly dried, so probably tomorrow or whenever I get back to the sewing machine. So what is my intention here? Well, I think there are some possibilities. Now, this particular girl is, this particular thing is 3 3/4 inches wide by, what is that, 9 to 16, 3, 6, 7.5 tall. So she could be hinged and be a fold, a flippy floppy thing. She could be glued down on 3 sides and become a pocket. She's probably, now I could theoretically, but again, I would want to wait till the glue has dried. By the way, I cut all my fabric pieces bigger so that I had the option of choosing where on the fabric to lay it out, and also to allow for stuff that happens. That's going to be our code word from now, stuff that happens. Anyway, you can see that I could probably cut off 3 of these rows and make this a smidge narrower. Now, in that case, this could also serve as a pretty wide belly band. But, you know, and I guess I need to make that decision before I sew around it. So that is the first one that I did. I then had this piece of fabric. Now, I don't know, there's some glue stuff there, but I don't know if you can tell that the light is not so great here. It's after 6 already. It's sort of iridescent. Let me show you. And I think this is the wrong side, to be honest. This is what the other side of it looks like. So you can see a little strié, sort of, you know, some of the threads there and so on. And this is lovely too. This is initially what I thought I was going to use. But I like the fact that this is iridescent. And I cannot be absolutely positive that this is not the right side. And even if it was, who cares? It's my project. It's my part, and I'll cry if I want to. So this was just glued to a bookmark. Now, because this is even narrower, so this is 2 3/4 inches, this will no doubt be a belly band. Now, where is my girl? Don't think oh, that would be great if I lost her. Did I put her under here? Wouldn't be much point in that. No, I didn't. Hopefully before this is all over, I will show you. So this was clearly the narrowest pose. So this is also the narrowest project. Don't think I scooped it up. Oh, maybe. Maybe. Yes, I did. This is the girl, the girl in question for this one. So, of course, these will be further decorated. And you can see that whatever happened here, her toe was at the edge of the block or the display. So that will have to be run to the edge of the page there. I will do a bit neater. I don't know if you can tell or not, but there's a little fraying there. Again, once this is dried, once I've sewn around it, and because this is likely to fray, I might zigzag around this one. I will do a better job. I'll try to get a little closer there. Here, I've got some little stuff happening too. And then, of course, having the girls on there, I could also shorten this one. Okay, 7, so this one's 8.5. Now, she doesn't have to be quite that tall. And in fact, it would be wise, because if a page is, well, or 8.5. You see how I talk to myself? And you guys are witness to it all. Okay, this is 8.5. So if I leave it at this, then that means that the page she goes on to will have to be at least 8.5 inches tall, and it will be glued right to the very edge of the paper. So what I'll probably do, again, when the glue is dry, is trim this slightly so that, you know, and slightly could mean just 1/4 inch or maybe 1/2 inch. I don't know, whatever I feel like at the moment, I guess. So that means that I've got a wee bit of wiggle room on, when it comes time to glue her down. On this one, I did remember to add the bead of glue around the edge, the art glitter glue. So that's that. Then I have this girl and this girl. And you can see that they probably, in fact, is this why this girl's hip is so, yeah, they were probably sitting like that on the page. So I thought it more important to keep this girl's cover up intact rather than that girl's skirt. Well, I couldn't have done anything about it because it's missing. And as it is, it looks like she needs back surgery because of the way she's standing. So now this is sheer. I don't know, you probably can see my fingers there, through there. And oh, by the way, I should let these guys go back under here because they're starting to curl up. Each of these fabrics were creased in their own way, even though, they had been ironed at some point. So I pulled out my ironing pad, put it on the island, and plugged in a little travel iron. So, they don't get particularly hot. It wasn't using steam or anything. I knew that these two pieces were the thinnest of them all, so I used them first while the iron was still preheating. So imagine my surprise, because I don't think I'm that unobservant, to see these two holes. I don't think I melted it. Maybe it was a flaw that I didn't see. There's something that wants to be a hole too. So I left the worst one to do with you guys, because even though I have more of this fabric, I'm not going to go and cut another piece. I'm going to make this work, because that's what we do when stuff happens. So the widest girl, this girl here, is going on the wider piece. This girl is going on this piece. Now, in this case, well, this backing and this are the same thing. They actually came off the same piece of paper. So it's a calendar, and I thought, well, this could easily be journaling space without having to do any further backing. But that meant that the side that has these really dark and light values might be harder to cover up. But you know what? I decided that I didn't care, because it adds another bit of interest. And if you were ever to get close enough to this, whatever this will be, belly band, tuck, bog, whatever, then you might notice that there's something underneath and think, oh my goodness, is that ever a talented creator? Look at that. She was able to get that effect. When in fact, it's just me covering a coloring sheet, essentially, with a sheer fabric. So on this one, I used the Aleene's Tacky Glue. I used, the silicone spreader, and I used a bead of art glitter glue around the edge. So, and you'll notice how much extra I kept, because, and again, maybe you're not as anal as I am. Maybe you don't overthink things like I do sometimes. And again, am I consciously aware of this? Am I talking to myself when you're not here? Not often. But if I were attempting to instruct you, which I think that's the reason that you're here, other than my stand-up comedy routine, of course, then I would be saying, oh, green, grass, blue, sky. Is that something you should be taking time to think about? I don't know. Your brain probably isn't wired like my brain, so I mean, do. I hate saying you do you because that's such an overused phrase, but truly, you do you. That's what I decided that how I decided that she's going to be that way instead of that way. Although, now that I'm looking at it, okay, where does her toe end? This might even be better. Obviously, the combination of flowers, the combination of colors in the flowers and her dress work together. That's why I chose this piece. I think I'm going to, well, let me look one more time. Pretend we're at the optometrist and he's saying, which is better, one or two, one or two, one or two. You know what? I think it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. So I'm going to opt for what I initially had because these flowers appear to be growing up because they have stems. So I'm going to stick with this. So, well, we'll only do this if we have time. I was going to take time to cut around this, but I mean, you can very well imagine that. Okay, now on this girl, I'm caring less about how she fits on the fabric than I do about where my little holy parts are going to be. Because I'm thinking that could easily be covered with a sentiment or a label or something to that effect. So it doesn't matter so much where she is pattern-wise as to where on the card the holes might end up being. So I could almost, this side, okay, so this is the top. Let me fold that under so we can all see. So that's the top of the card. The bottom of the card is right about here. So this is where the hole is, if assuming that I glued her down about there. So I think that would be a good space to put a tag or sentiment or another piece of fabric or whatever. So that's what I think I'm going to opt for. Now, there isn't going to be a great deal of these flowers will essentially disappear. Now, let's see what happens if we do it the other way. If we put the hole near the top. So the hole is right there. Now, unfortunately, that's going to be right by her face. So I would not be putting something right by her face. So it looks like this is going back to the bottom. And I will show you my incredible strength as I begin smearing, squeezing, and spreading this very thick glue out. And again, should this be up or down? Well, I guess if I put it this way, then the numbers would not be upside down. So let's do that. Because again, I really don't feel like having to back something that is a heavy, fairly heavy weight to begin with, which also is then further strengthened by a piece of fabric and this big, you know, all this glue that's going on here. So that all adds to the strength, stability, rigidity of the project. Now you probably can't see white on white, but I'm basically just, see this, it's either so thick that that's why I'm having difficulty spreading it, or I didn't put enough on, or, I mean, who knows. I think, though, that I will do the same thing again, because really, if there is, you know, an area in the middle of this thing that isn't totally adhered, that's certainly not the end of the world. If, however, the fabric starts lifting at the outer edge and maybe allowing the fabric to fray, or forcing me to have to sew it, and maybe I didn't really want to, then that just is a little bit of insurance. So again, with yard glitter glue, we don't have much time to get our positioning right. So I think I was going, maybe I'll do it this way, it'll be a little easier for me. I'm going to get fairly close to this edge. Don't know. Honestly, I don't know what happened there, but I guess that's the danger of, or the downside of looking at something that is so patterned. And I think I got these off, I have two pieces. I believe, if I remember correctly, they were pillow shams. Or cushion covers or something to that effect. Now it's a wee bit safer in a situation like this to do my spreading and my pressure on the paper side, the tougher side, because if I were to do it on here, I could be dragging and stretching the fabric. You know what? If I put a little speck, some of those fibers are still there, and it happened, you know, dumb luck, it happened to end up on a dark piece of the pattern. It almost disappears. So I'll just add a little extra here as well. Now, if you didn't know about this, you would think, oh, that's just a little, looky there. That's just like a little one of those white flecks that they have there as a highlight. That worked out better than I thought. Okay. So just to get a slightly better idea of what's going on here, I will trim this. Again, may not be totally perfect, but I will touch it up if I need to. And of course, I'm saving the bits that I'm cutting off, because I never, ever, ever, ever want to run out of scraps, she said with an eye roll. There's not much chance of that happening, let's just say. As much as that Aleene's tacky glue is a little bit hard to work with sometimes, I have to say I'm pretty pleased with how it's been performing with many of these. Look how cute this is. Okay, is the crazy woman going to keep this little strip? Okay, I have a question for you. In the comments, tell me whether you think I should keep this or I shouldn't, and I will bow to your wishes. And then we will see what kind of people really watch my videos. Few little kind of creases there, but again, with a busy pattern like this, it's not going to show. So once I've sewn around this, I will be gluing this girl down. I really can't afford to shorten this anymore because otherwise her feet or her hat will be touching the edge. So this is clearly the biggest one, and it is 4¼ inches wide. So that's almost the width of a tall, skinny page. So we'll have to see what happens with this. Maybe she ends up being sealed with matte medium and becomes the journal topper with a whole bunch more embellishment. So let me line these girls up. Remember, you're voting to keep or not to keep. Use it, don't store it. So, of course, these things are not finished, but at least you have somewhat of an idea of where I'm going with them. I'll trim this one, and I will begin my close, which is to thank you for being here, for spending some of your precious time with me. If your lives are half as crazy as mine, then I know, and I very much appreciate that you are spending some time with me. And if you have taken that additional step or those additional steps to subscribe, to give me a thumbs up, and to comment, then you're really close to my heart. Because we're like trained monkeys. We dance to the music of the algorithms. Okay, so she was, okay, and I'm going to obviously have to put something over that missing hip. She's going to be, it's like 3-pin bowling. Everything's falling. So this is clearly another way to use some fairly big scrap pieces of fabric. It's a way to use some vintage fussy cuts. It's a way to add some more texture into your work through the fabric. And another way to use packaging and cardboard and, you know, things that would just end up in the garbage. Now, of course, there will be, when the time comes to use these or to further embellish them, there will be time then as well to use up even more supplies. You know, like what is going to finish these off. You know, these are busy enough that they may carry the day by themselves. This one in particular is probably going to need something more to give it some pizzazz. This is almost hard on the eyes, so maybe it'll mean covering up some of that houndstooth so it is less likely to be an irritant to somebody. The other thing that a person could do, might have been smarter to do it before starting, is use some water-soluble like watercolor pencils, Caran d'Ache crayons. It would be too risky to use wet watercolor, like to use, traditional watercolor, because this is basically just newsprint. Came out of, magazine, an old magazine. So probably the best bet would be to use a little bit of pencil crayon and maybe just barely, touch it in places to get, to get more of a watercolor effect. Or the other thing could be just using markers. But those decisions are not for today. I could get her on the waiting list for a hip replacement. That would get the ball rolling in that direction. But other than that, I'm going to stop right there. So when you next see these, and I don't know when that'll be, maybe you'll see them showing up in some project, or maybe I'll do a hashtag follow-up Friday. Haven't done one of those for a long time. By then I will have stitched around them and maybe tried adding some color. And yeah, I hope that you choose to do this. If you have some fuzzy cut ladies, and they don't have to be vintage, of course, and I'm sure you have probably as many scraps as I do, fabric scraps, so go for it. It's fun. It's very much fun. Okay, guys, thank you for being here, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.